whilst I think Game Freak have done a good job in letting every Pokemon carve out an own niche that they can do, there's over 1,000 of them now, and some of them are going to fall behind and kind of be outclassed by all the newer Pokemon getting added with all their special gimmicks and abilities and new moves. And I thought we'd have a look at some of them today, especially more of the unknown Pokemon, like Ledian or Swanna or Unown. Now, Darmanitan is a very good Pokemon. But Darmanitan has a second form, and I'm not talking about Galarian Darmanitan, because that's also really good, but that one also has a second form. Zen Mode Darmanitan is a really weird one, because Darmanitan itself is really good, and looking at Zen Mode Darmanitan, it's also really good. But when you put them together, it doesn't quite work. Because if you don't know about Zen Mode, when Darmanitan falls below 50% HP, it becomes Zen Mode. But Zen Mode is very specially offensive, whereas regular Darmanitan is very physically offensive. So, do you just take it and run a mixed Darmanitan? Or do you have to, run a physical... Well, you don't have to run physical Zen, you'll just use its other ability. But do you want to run a special Darmanitan until it drops into Zen Mode? Or, let's say you want to trigger Zen Mode yourself. The easiest way to do that is Belly Drum, which buffs your attack. So, it doesn't work. As a concept, it's cool, but in-game, it's so hard to pull off. And they kind of went way better with Galarian Darmanitan here, because they gave it better offensive stats, more speed. But it's still overshadowed, same with regular Darmanitan, by their other abilities, being, Sheer Force, with Sheer Force, Life Orb, Rock Slide, with a Fire Fang, Fire Punch, whatever, doing insane damage. Or, Galarian Darmanitan with Gorilla Tactics, like, why would you not take a free choice band instead of the niche changing to a Fire Ice type? It's very odd that they put them on, it's why you don't really see them. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if many of you haven't actually even seen Galarian Darmanitan Zen Mode. Pretty cool though. If you want a Pokemon to set up screens, and let's say for whatever reason, you don't want to use Aurora Veil, even though they got rid of Hail, so you don't even take chip damage now, you can run Focus Session teams. Or you don't want to run Grimmsnarl, because you don't like Grimmsnarl or something. Your next choice probably isn't a bug type, and even if your next choice was a bug type, you're definitely not choosing Ledian. There's not a niche for Ledian. It's got mostly physical moves, with like a few special moves, but not very good coverage in them. And its ability is pretty bad. Swarm, Early Bird. And then its hidden ability, Iron Fist, boosting its punching moves with base 35 attack. Like, the same as Flittle. Ledian just, it doesn't have anything. It's a cool Pokemon, but it's just useless. I feel really bad. Maybe if it got the bug fighting typing and an attack boost, but I don't know how you solve Ledian. It's just not good. Rampardos and Bastiodon kind of come together as the Sinnoh fossils, and Frostweb Gaming did a good series on this, based on all of the theorems with Rampardos and Bastiodon having their own, where Rampardos has insanely high attack, but terrible defense, and really middle speed, which is the worst speed you can have, because you can't work in Trick Room, you can't outspeed anything, you're just stuck. And that's why Rampardos can't really do anything despite its really, really high attack stat, because even Scarfed, it still gets outsped, it gets one hit because it's so frail. And Bastiodon is the complete opposite. Really, really high defense and special defense, but low offense, terrible speed, and what's worse for that, because having high defenses allows you to sit around. what is it going to do? It can't hit you hard, and it doesn't get access to any moves that can slowly take you down over time, like especially when Toxic was taken off of every Pokemon. It can't burn you, it can't do anything. It just kind of sits there and doesn't do anything. Avalugg is a weird one, because Avalugg has insane defenses and pretty good HP and attack, but its special side is terrible, and its speed is really, really bad, which obviously means it works in Trick Room. But it doesn't see really any usage or success because it's just not... It's not got the supporting options that such a bulky Pokemon needs. Like, it's got the offenses if you want to use it in Trick Room, but it doesn't... It can't help a team without being a sweeper itself in Trick Room, and there's obviously better Pokemon and whatnot. But something like Blissey, which is the opposite, obviously really, really good HP again, like insane HP. If you max it out in Scarlet and Violet, it literally goes off of the scale. I don't know why they haven't fixed that, but I think it's kind of funny. But it has 0 defense, so you just punch it and it dies. But Blissey works because it has the support moves. It has Thunder Wave, it has Soft Boiled, and it doesn't need the offensive stat because it has Seismic Toss, so it can just do confirmed damage. But Avalugg doesn't get that support unless you're running your 10% Ice Fang Freeze or whatever. You've not got any consistent support. And even though it's got that insane defense stat, it's an Ice type. You've got 1 resistance to a mostly special stat, or mostly specials type, and your weaknesses are all these really strong physical attacks, except for Fire, which is mostly mixed. But Fighting and Steel and Rock, they're all going to hit you really hard physically, which kind of just balances out how high your stat is. Whereas, Blissey was normal typing, doesn't really have the resistances, like Ice doesn't have resistances, but it doesn't have weaknesses. Avalugg's just... It's in a weird spot where it's not quite Bastiodon, where it sits there and does absolutely nothing, but just takes hits. But it can't use that defense really well unless you specifically want it in Trick Room, which doesn't make it as bad as some of the Pokemon on the list. Weezing Galar isn't necessarily bad, but the thing that kind of hinders it is a lot of the times you don't want to give away information in Pokemon. It's the whole point, You send in a legendary, they've got 1, maybe 2 abilities, no one ever really uses it. But Weezing Galar has 3 really good abilities in Neutralizing Gas, Misty Surge, and Levitate. But Neutralizing Gas activates on switching, Misty Surge activates on switching. So therefore, if something doesn't activate on switching, it's Levitate. Like, a Pokemon that can use its abilities well, I think, is Bronzong, despite you don't really see Heatproof Bronzong. But it has that mix-up where you see a Bronzong and you think, okay, I can't hit this as a ground-type move. But you don't know that. Maybe you can. Maybe you can hit it with a super effective ground move, but it resists or is neutral to fire because of Heatproof. It has that mix-up, there's that bit of mind games there. But Weezing, you can't do it with Levitate, because its other 2 abilities activate on switching. Now, Veluza isn't a bad Pokemon. It's brand new. Game Freak haven't left it behind yet. A lot of the Scarlet Violet Pokemon have a niche to them. But I do just want to say, this thing is so underwhelming. I get chased down across the ocean by a Veluza just for it to be really mid in speed, and it's like they gave it an exclusive move in Fillet Away, which halves its HP for doubled attack and speed. But it's kind of slow, but not slow enough to be good in Trick Room. It's not fast enough to be able to outspeed stuff. It's frail, so you're taking half your health and then you're just going to get knocked out anyway. It's just the fact they made it so fast in the overworld, and then it's like slow. That's just false advertising. Zoroark? Controversial. Not a bad Pokemon. Zoroark absolutely is not bad, you know. You can make people guess, especially if you turn it into a psychic, or not a psychic type, if you turn it into a Pokemon that's weak to psychic, and then switch it in, it's immune to psychic, whatever. But, Hisuian Zoroark is immune to 3 types, being, normal, ghost, and fighting. And it has mostly the same moveset, slightly varied stats, so I think more physical and slightly less, more like 5 than special. But in most situations, 3 immunities is better than 1. I don't really know how you'd argue against that. But I guess if there's a lot of psychic types going around, Zoroark would be better than Hisuian Zoroark, and then vice versa with fighting types. If you have them together, that's when it gets very confusing, because it's like, oh, okay, what if I know it's a Zoroark, but what if it's immune to fighting? What if it's weak to fighting, you know? But I think Hisuian Zoroark just outclasses it because of its insanely good typing in normal Ghost. But Zoroark himself, not terrible, just kind of been outclassed by the new Zoroark. Regigigas is basically the poster child of Pokemon that Game Freak dislike, considering it has one of the worst abilities in the game in slow start. And although it has really good stats, a half speed and attack for the first 5 turns you're on field is just terrible. Especially considering its only recovery move is rest, which means you have to spend 2 turns asleep afterwards. And only in Sword and Shield did they give it access to Protect to be able to actually waste turns. Because before that, you just had to take the hits. It can't buff its own defenses in any way. Trying to get Regigigas to sit around for long enough to get rid of slow start is not worth it. Especially when there's Pokemon like Zacian, which has similar stats, I think slightly lower attack, slightly more speed, against attack based on switching. Doesn't seem very fair towards Regigigas, but you know. I mean, even in the game that didn't have abilities in it, they still had to give Regigigas slow start. Like, one day they'll make him good. One day we'll get Primal Reversion back, and we'll get Primal Regigigas, and it'll be insane. Maybe. Slaking is one of the more popular ones as well, with Truant only being able to attack every other turn. I mean, you know, if you're playing against anyone who isn't an AI, you just kind of Protect on the turn. Slaking can't do anything, especially of how common Protect actually is. But other than that, Slaking is a pretty good Pokemon. It's got really good stats. Like, it's up there with legendaries. Normal it's an alright typing. It's not bad, but it's not good either. The only thing with Slaking is its move pool is kind of shallow. It doesn't get too much, but like with an attack stat that Slaking has, slap a choice band on it, kick your impact, and you're doing insane damage. Do I need to explain why Unown is bad? Swanna is a Pokemon. What does Swanna do? It looks like not even Game Freak remembered Swanna was a Pokemon, because it's not been in a game since Sun and Moon, which means I can't get footage of it. But as a water flying type, what does Swanna do? Like, other water flying types, you have Pelipper, who's a good range setter with Drizzle. We have Gyarados, who, you know, you have Dragon Dancers, or you can run bulkier ones with Intimidate and whatever. Cramorant at least has its own signature ability in Gulp Missile. You know, if you pull a Pikachu, you can get Paralysis, and yeah, it's quite a cool mechanic. It's just, once again, they put them on bad Pokemon to give them that gimmick and give them that reason to use them. And then Mantine is pretty bulky, and it gets access to Water Absorb, so, you know, you've got your Water immunity there, and your Water Flying, and it's a pretty good typing, other than the Electric weakness. But Swanna, it doesn't have anything. It is a Pokemon of all time, and that's about all I can say about Swanna. Phione is a weird one, because I always used to think Phione was not fully evolved. I thought, oh, you get Phione, it evolves into Manaphy, right? Because to get a Phione, you have to breed a Manaphy. But Phione is a standalone Pokemon. Which means I could say that as a standalone, fully evolved Pokemon that you could use, it's literally worse Manaphy. Just lower stats. Like, why would you ever take a Phione over a Manaphy when it's literally just worse? It's... I don't know why Phione exists. There's maybe some little reason or something, but like... There's nothing for it. Meltan is a similar thing to Phione, where it does technically evolve into Melmetal, but you can't do it. You have to evolve Meltan in Pokemon Go. So if you've got a Meltan, well, he's going to stay as a Meltan, which means he's technically not fully evolved. It's a weird case. But also, even to use Meltan, you need to have Pokemon Go, and you need to have Let's Go, and you trade it, and then whatever. It's really awkward. And Meltan itself gets, like, nothing. You get, like, Thunder Shock, Flash Cannon. I don't even know if it's Flash Cannon. It gets nothing. It is essentially useless. But Melmetal is so good, but you can't evolve it, so what's the point of a Meltan? Plusle Minun are, like, bad. Like, Pikachu clones aren't normally good. Like, yes, Pachirisu is a world champion, but for a niche. Like, it filled the niche on Sajin's team, which is fair enough. Plusle Minun are just terrible even for a Pikachu clone. It was made to show off doubles, obviously, with their plus and minus abilities, buffing the special attack of any Pokemon that also has plus or minus. You know, all 7 of them. One of which isn't an electric type. Like, terrible stats, terrible abilities. They just don't work. You can't really get them to work. Just use a better electric type. It doesn't have a niche, unlike, you know, Pachirisu. Or even Dedenne with its fairy typing and its cheap patch and Super Fangs. These guys don't even get Super Fang. Castform has a really cool mechanic in that in the weather, it changes to a fire type or an ice type or a water type, or not a ground type because it does not have a sandstorm form for some reason and they never gave it one. Don't know why they never did that. But its base 70 in every stat is not good. Of course, it's a gimmick Pokemon to show off weather in Gen 3, again, just like Plusle Minun would show off doubles. But it just doesn't do anything. It gets access to Weather Ball, which obviously you get Weather Ball, you get Stab in any weather that you want. It's still only base 100, which, like, is good, but from base 70, it's terrible. And Castform could be cool. I think if Castform's forms had different stats and shuffled them around, say, like, the Sun one was more specially offensive and the Rain one was more defensive, then the Snow one was... I don't know, Snow isn't really a very big archetype. But as it is, like, just use any other Pokemon that benefits from the weather. It gets access to all the weathers at least, but, like, so does Tornadus. And Tornadus gets Prankster. It doesn't have 70 stats around the board. I know it's a bad argument, but, you know, there's no niche for Castform. It is a cool design, though. And I am glad they gave its other form shinies after all this time. It only took them up into remakes of Gen 4.